market crash of our lifetimes. So I did the trifecta bad credit, right? I realized I couldn't pay my bills and filed bankruptcy. A few months later, I realized that one of those bills that I couldn't pay was my mortgage. So I lost my house. A few months later, I thought, it's time to burn the boats, got a divorce. So that was the trifecta in '08.
That the real estate journey started more towards like that late 20s. And I know in the late teens, it was like girlfriend got pregnant, trying to get like the quote unquote real job. I would love to hear just that gap, that gap in there, because some of the listeners are on the journey, like moving towards that dream of having that start in that company, or they're still kind of in survival mode and trying to figure some things out. So I think getting pregnant early in life is something that some audience members could relate to, and I'd love to just have you share that. How was that process? I asked that question to another one of our guests too, and I really loved the way he explained it, and I'd love to hear how you explained your journey as well, if possible.
Yeah, I mean, the gap was it was grueling, right? I mean, I just remember my 20s, just working these jobs and not really feeling like there was more to life, but quite honestly, not knowing what the answers were, and not knowing at the time. I wished I'd had I'll just give you an example. I wish that I don't wish anything, but I should, I'm trying to, I wish that I had access to like the book that I wrote right now, right? Like that kind of information. I didn't have any kind of like personal development type things in my life. It wasn't until, I mean, dude, I just like just worked away. And then I just remember turning 30 and thinking, if I don't do anything different, like before I know it, I'm going to wake up and I'll be 40 and another 10 years have gone by. Right. And so, the pain of staying the same has to be more painful than the fear of change. And that's what happened. Right. I just decided like, can't do this anymore.
So these individuals that are in their 20s, I mean, you literally just fast forwarded a decade. We went from your girlfriend got pregnant at 17. You're like, yeah, I just did a bunch of shit, and then I turned 30 and realized like I need a wake up call. Some of these individuals, like some of the people listening, they have their parents have kids that are in their late teens, early 20s, or someone's listening and they are in their early 20s, and I don't want to skip this where we give them permission. It's like, yeah, your 20s don't matter. You can fuck up all you want, and then you could get 30 and have a wake up call, and you could prepare it, and just like I did, and then read my book, or I would love to get into what were some of those consequences that you experienced, and what were some of the painful lessons that you endured, that maybe a parent listening says, damn, okay, I probably should parent my kid through some of that stuff. Or if it's someone in their 20s saying, all right, I don't have to wait till I'm 30 to have this wake up call. Like if you could like really feel into some of those, what were the lessons? What were the consequences? What were the stories? Like what was it like being this version of you? Yeah.
Okay. I was a corrections officer, jail guard for 5 years, right? Nothing that I would have ever growing up thought like that I would end up doing. I just happened into it, right? Heard they were hiring, sounded like an interesting job with some time off and good benefits. So I worked in a jail, and then it felt like I was in jail because, I would go to work and the sun wasn't out, and 12 hours later after my shift, I would go home and the sun wasn't out. So, I mean, days of not seeing the sun, right? I did that for 5 years. So now I'm around 25. And I was just like, I got to get out of here. So real estate sounded interesting. It was 2005. Everything was going amazing, right? So I jumped into that. I do want to rewind on something you said, right? So if someone in their 20s is listening to this podcast, they're already way ahead of where I was in my 20s, right? Because I didn't do anything like this. If parents are listening, start feeding the kids the information early, right? That's what I've started doing. Just like, even if they don't want to hear it, at least like exposing them to it so that when they are ready, they know where to look. One idea that I had heard, and I haven't implemented it, but it could be an idea, is just, paying your kids to read books and write a book report on it when it's done, right? Again, I haven't implemented it, but I always thought that could be an interesting idea, right? Here, read this and write a summary about it and I'll pay you. But anyway, back to my story, right? I mean, I jump into real estate in 05. It's going okay. 07 hits. I do not have the capital or the relationships to kind of sustain me through, the biggest market crash of our lifetimes. So I did the trifecta of bad credit, right? I realized I couldn't pay my bills and filed bankruptcy. And then a few months later, I realized that one of those bills that I couldn't pay was my mortgage. So I lost my house. And then a few months later, I thought it's time to burn the boats, and got a divorce. So that was the trifecta in 08. So I'm renting a 2-bedroom apartment.
And that woman that you divorced, was that the same one that you got pregnant at 17?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yes.
She was with you through this valley that you were in with as a correctional officer as well.
Yeah. So my son was born when I was 17. Our daughter was born when I was 20. And so, I just thought like, that's what you're supposed to do, right? You're supposed to get married and buy a house and all that good stuff. So yeah, we were together about 12 years, until I was 30. And then, so yeah, 08 comes, renting an apartment, 2 bedrooms so that each kid can have a bedroom. I get behind on my rent. I get behind on, it's like, dude, I already filed bankruptcy and lost the house the year before. And now I'm like behind on my bills again. I think the only reason I didn't get evicted is because the landlord was also a real estate agent and she knew what was going on. But I kept grinding. I mean, that's a whole story in itself, right? How I switched to real estate. But so I told you about the girl who said I only made $4,000. So the next day I just drove to a real estate office, signed up, bought a bunch of open house signs, put them out. Bunch of people came in. I wrote an offer. The offer didn't get accepted, but I just thought, you know what, if I just do this 40 hours a week, like there's no way I'm not going to sell one house a month. And so, later on that year, I sold some houses and caught up on my bills. Hope that helps. But yeah, the 20s were just.
So that hustle that you had to go do this 40 hours, this really genius way of marketing. I mean, it's like the whole, let me just work my ass off to go find a way to create something. I'm going to put out all these open house sites just to just go create something for yourself. The shift happened where I'm not going to work for someone else. I'm going to work for myself. I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to go. I got inspired by this. She didn't know she was a mentor, but this inspirational person in your life, and said, wow, there could be more to this. And you created a shift. Now, all those painful moments of, I'm sure, those conversations as a young parent, and conversations as a young married couple, as young parents, we could get into the weeds of some of that stuff, but I really am most impressed by you navigating through these valleys and these unpredictable times and being willing to share that with us and our audience, because I think a lot of people can relate to how much uncertainty happens. And then there's sometimes just a moment that we got to make a shift, and you chose a different path. You made the choice. You started aggressively pursuing this, and you fast forward 14 years later, I guess, and you have a $1 billion company, a company that's or a company that has sold $1 billion worth of real estate to you. So I don't want to like over embellish or exaggerate, but that's, sure. $1 billion worth of real estate that you're responsible for, from such a, I would say a dark place and a deep valley that some people would never be able to climb out of.